Look, to give you an example of this book. Okay, I'm on page 300, and she's writing of island of Crete, Manoa, as it is referred to here, and she's talking about the wife of the king there, who doesn't have the same equal rights as she has with her pharaoh husband. You know, the writer, so to speak, in the story. But see what she picks out. She's describing then the king's wife of this country she's visiting, the island of Crete. Okay, sometimes she talked of him, that's her husband the king, as if she were his favourite dancing girl, telling me how, even if his fleet were overdue, that's his sailing fleet of ships, she could drive thoughts of kingship from his mind and keep him within the closed circle of an embrace. Sometimes she talked of him as if he were a beautiful youth who had still to sail her virginity, and sometimes as if she were an indulgent mother talking proudly of a willful child. Her love for her husband seemed to change with every mood. Perhaps it was because in Manoas they are not taught to know thyself, and have not yet learned that the enduring strength of love is to know the measure that the other has of good and evil, wisdom and foolishness, and, knowing it in stark simplicity, still to want to make the long journey by his side. Now that's staggering insight in there. I mean, I don't care whether this is a historicity, a history or story or whatever. The writer, what's her name again? Joan Grant. She's captured in there something very spiritual, as I understand it. A level of love which is different. You see, she's, if you like, a very enlightened being as joint pharaoh with her brother, and amazing spiritual powers are referred to in the story that she has. And she's talking about this queen and her husband that they're visiting in Manoas, and it's a country that doesn't have the spiritual wealth that Egypt is endowed with. And so, and in her assessment of the queen there, you know, she writes this paragraph here. Yeah, amazing. And instantly, I mean, isn't it enlightening as regards what love can be when you are spiritual? In other words, you can see a situation as it is. You don't need to be ascribing to it what it doesn't have. But you still love the person. And you value them for the level they're at. And this is what you do with your child, isn't it? You realize they're a child, but they've made progress, some progress. And you so want to encourage them and support them, and it calls upon your heart to love them. That's how God is to us. What a wonderful God. I'm so impressed, aren't I, as if it were completely new to me, and I suppose it is in a way, having been so anti-fiction for the bulk of my life. You know, some 50-odd, 60-odd years or so. To find that I should have known, shouldn't I? Because I knew Julius Caesar was a story. Couldn't be reality. It's written by Shakespeare out of the blue sort of thing. I mean, looking at it as a secular person, which I was. And yet I could see that in that speech of Mark Antony, you know, then ingratitude more strong than traitor's arms quite vanquished him. And in his mantle muffling up his face, great Caesar fell. You know, I could, although it was fiction, I was into it, and of course I was a born actor. My goodness, did I throw myself into it when I said it. I know, I was good. We're only talking about a kid of, school kid, what was I? I don't know. Gosh, what age was I? I'm guessing 14. 14, pick a number out of the blue there. Listen a minute to the next paragraph as illustration of this writer's incredible blessed ability of words. I mean, I think I'm a master of words, but this is beauty. One night, sleeping in curtained litters, we were carried up one of the great mountains that crowned their island. For the first time I held snow between my hands and saw my fingers mould it with their warmth. The gleaming white of pearl I knew, and the warm white of new-cut ivory, the foaming whiteness of a breaking wave, and the daisy petals brilliant in the sun. But now in my hands I cupped the heart of whiteness, the essence of all colour transmuted into purity. My goodness, what a flow of words. Given that to me 30 years ago, I'd have thought it was just flowery rubbish. And now I don't. What's happened to you, Marsha? Been touched by the hand of God, touched by an angel. Wow. Thank you, Dad. Well, the eastern sky hung out its banners of the day, and the morning breeze quenched the stars, flickering lamps. The land below us was still sleeping beneath the mist, but we, on a white island above the clouds, saw the cold brilliance about our feet turn to a throne of coral for the gods. The horizon, mighty as the wheel of time, encircled us, and sleeping earth stirred to the sound of Ra's chariot. Ra is the sun god, of course, you see, the sun's rising. As to the coloured music of the dawn, he returned to greet his subjects on a new day. Could I write like that? Could I somehow record, speak like that? Do you see, I'm inspired to want this lady's incredible gift of fluency. I feel pretty fluent as a person, as a speaker. I'm a master of words, for goodness sake. I have been since before Julius Caesar, at school. But my goodness, am I impressed by this lady. Well, she then goes on to talk about how beauty in Egypt at the time, well, we're talking about 3000 BC, I gather, supposedly, we see the present as the reflection of the past, or as that which creates a reflection in the future. Only thus can the present be seen in its entirety. For if one sees only one side of a balance, it is without meaning and cannot fulfill its purpose. Remember, you're weighed in the balance, and balances are important in there. So their idea of beauty is an amazing symmetry, which I've always had too. I see palaces, even in England, in the, 16th, 17th, 18th century Europe. They're built balanced. They're equal on both sides. There's a line of symmetry about them. We know that beauty is permanent, and that being permanent is beyond the confines of the five senses of the body and can be apprehended only by the spirit. We do not paint a frieze in a fashion that is expected to convince the eye that what it sees is not a painting of a man, but the man himself. But our drawing scribes record those things that they hope will stir the spirit of the beholder, so that he can recreate with his inward vision that which the scribe saw with his spirit. All this perspective painting and drawing, which we feel is such a progress in art, and it is in a way, for realism. It's not the symbolic pictures of Egypt, ancient Egypt, is it? I'm talking now, I'm not reading. And she's speaking with insight as to why that might be so. It's not simply that Egypt had a primitive form of art. I think it was Akhenaten who actually wanted his image to be realistic. Pharaohs right up to Akhenaten, something like 1300 and something BC, not 3000 BC. But Akhenaten wanted his image to be realistic, not the symbolic balance that the Pharaoh's face was always presented as. It didn't actually look like the Pharaoh, it was symbolic of him in some sense, Let me just read on. I haven't read this next paragraph, so let's see how it strikes us, shall we? I'm on page 302. Just as writing signs convey words, which convey thought, which conveys an image seen in the writer's mind, so do our pictures pass on what the painter has seen, not only through his eyes, but in his heart. If our painting scribes wish to record the beauty of a garden, they do not depict it as their eyes see it, for to create an illusion of reality is to create only an illusion. That's a good one. No one can sit in the shade of a painted tree, though every leaf were faithfully portrayed. And a flower, however beautiful drawn, can give forth no scent except of the plaster on which it has been limed. But just as corn springs from dry seed, so does the drawing scribe plant the seeds of thought. His pool is a square space marked with water lines, and if it harbours lotus or fishes, they too are shown. His trees are formalized and show where they are placed and what kind of fruit or flowers they bear. And in the mind of the beholder, these seeds of thought shall grow until he can hear the wind stirring the leaves, see the fish flickering in the lotus shade, taste the pomegranate juice cool upon his tongue, and find contentment in this garden living in his mind. This authoress, this writer, is a genius, and I'm just amazed, beautifully amazed. Now look, holding with, and I'll jump a page to 304. In Manoas, they rejoice in the beauty of their bodies, yet even in this they are different from the people of Cam, and she means by that Egypt, okay? For to us a body is beautiful, not only for the shaping of the shell, but also because of the spirit that inhabits it. We put malachite upon our eyelids and wear fine linen, as a man might build a beautiful pavilion, as a background to the woman he loves. But here men love a body for itself alone, and it is as though they strewed herbs on the floor of an empty house where dust would lie forever undisturbed by any living feet. Yet they are happy in their youth, she means spiritual youth, and to try to explain our ways of thought to them were as if one tried to tell a newborn kitten, content to suckle in its mother's warmth, of the things it would see when its eyes were opened. She finds them, you see, spiritually in poverty compared to Egypt. Right, well, I guard myself against worshipping this writer, as I did when I read Paramhansa's autobiography, as I did when I read the Gita, Bhagavad Gita. But I am impressed, and I am purposed very much to sift that which I value from the rest of something, that I may be the richer for it. Yeah. Thank you, Dad. So I have done likewise with each person's faith that I hear, each religious group that I belong to, and I belong to a whole variety of such, accepted their spiritual level, valued that which was to be valued there, the intent, that which they had got right, and passed over that which I found not appropriate or not acceptable, not to marshal. So I travelled through this world, collecting treasures, which I bring home in my personhood. And this is our uniqueness, that we do just this. And I think you will carry something of this unique personhood with you always in your life eternal. Yes, you will be transformed into an incredibly godly person as a member of the host of heaven, but you will ever be uniquely an individual person, you. And that is what's so lovely about heaven, the immense variety that is also there, not just its harmony, not just its godliness, but the sparkle of uniqueness everywhere. We are stars in the sky. Thank you, Dad. Get some of this description. This is, okay, they're in an arena now, they're watching a display for their benefit, and it's a sort of bullfight in a strange way, but not quite. acrobats that can jump out the way of bulls. But one of them gets gored by the bull. And look at how the writer now writes. I found the moods of these people bewildering, for instead of the lamentation that I expected from the crowd, there was a wild outburst of acclamation for the bull. Flowers were rained down upon it, and the cows enticed it out of the arena. As the cows enticed it out of the arena, the people shouted in an ecstasy of excitement. A cloak was thrown over the dead man, and I put my hand on the shoulder of the girl sitting at my feet. It must have been unnerving for her to see her companion killed, knowing that many times she would dare this death, but her face mirrored nothing of her heart. Well, Caius the king was delighted, and he said to me, "See, the gods have taken unto themselves my bull. We shall have a rich harvest. None other than Zeus could have vanquished the greatest athlete in the land." And when I asked him if he were not sorrowful that such a man should have been killed, he said, he was a magnificent. It must indeed have been Zeus himself who conquered him, this bull which the god has honoured by incarnating into it, even though for a moment shall live in the precincts of the temple. And so it goes on. Wow, look at this. I've come across this on page, 314 now. The king of Manaus did not know that in Cam, that's Egypt, we hold the gods of our other countries in respect, unless they be of the train of Set. There is but one truth and one great brotherhood, and all gods, if they be true gods, must be of that company, in whatever form the people of earth may picture them. And even if that which is called a god is but a statue, having no spirit in the universe, still would it be against our teaching to treat that little, which is the furthest such people can attain without courtesy. So this giving respect to the level at which another person is at spiritually, maybe conceptually from your point of view, above or below you. An interesting view, isn't it? And I think that's why I've been so open as to go to different religious meetings. I was at a Mormon meeting the other day. I've been to Sikh meetings. I've been to Catholic meetings. I've been to you name it. And I've found something of good in each. I don't mean I've found a great desire to belong to it. But I haven't rejected the people because of their views. Do you like this bit? This was after the ceremony, and I was surprised to find that it was still 2 hours before noon, for it seemed that the shadows of evening would be lying across the land. So long had been this ceremony. It was spiritually lifeless from her point of view, you see. Goodness gracious, you know. Well, I think this book is the author's scripture, Joan. by which I mean her values disguised in a story. As a fiction, so it can't be criticised. It's just a story of heroes and demons and sorrows and victories. Her unique appreciation of living in this world. It could be that the story is a historicity of her as incarnated as a female pharaoh, joint pharaoh of 5,000 years ago. Certainly every so often she writes something that strikes one as too authentic not to have been experienced herself. I am impressed by that. I'm impressed more by the way God has spoken to me I hope you don't think this is too much self-aggrandizement, but at some point she's talking about the priest who was with them in her entourage, her and her brother, joint pharaohs, to this country, Minoas, which I think is the island of Crete. And I don't know who it is, but cross-examining in a way a mystic priest, and says to him, but surely you're very wealthy back home. Oh, that's right, it's one of their priests. And so talking to her priest, saying, surely you've got lands? No. Oh, you've got lots of wealth then? No. Don't your people tithe? Yes, but it's used by the state, basically, he says, I have a room where I sleep, and another where I keep my possessions. And I thought, yes, 2 rooms. That's what I've got. The room where I sleep and where I dictate these recordings. And another where I keep my possessions. And my son or daughter when they come to stay, visit. And it's plenty. The rest that I enjoy is part of the common good of this tiny city of Hamilton in New Zealand. The lake, perhaps the university campus, perhaps the river, long walks, the town, the people I know, and the people I don't know, whom I talk to. And I've never been, I don't know what the word is, more full, more accomplished, more happy. Well, because of course I'm practicing the presence of God whenever I can get my wandering mind to do so. And I don't mean by that I'm permanently meditating, except in a living, very purposeful sense of feeling sent to bless. To bless. And to know the love of you, Dad. I so want to be your eternal friend in your eternal company, in the full awareness of such. If possible, a joy and pleasure to you and to all the host of heaven that forever embraces all that is made, that you have made and that you love too. Love you, Dad. Thank you, Dad.